Hope is looking into the future and seeing something positive. It's going forward and having a premonition of a brighter future, something nice, something to work towards, or just having that optimistic view of the near or even late future. So, why is this dangerous? Well, it's dangerous in the same way that love is dangerous. It's dangerous because it can damage you. Caring is a damaging thing. You know, it goes two ways. While on the one hand, it gives you everything you have, it can also take that away. And depending on what side of the line you stand on, it can either be the best thing or very much the worst. It's no coincidence that a lot of people do commit suicide, for example, after, they lose hope or they lose love or they lose something they strongly care about. And that is the most extreme example, granted. But it's important to view this in this way, that hope can actually be a literal killer. So, is it important to be hopeless? Well, at the same time, not necessarily. Looking purely to the future and seeing only negatives also isn't a particularly healthy way of looking at it. And supposing that this is the case, it's maybe best to take it from your own perspective. If you know you're someone that gets crushed significantly by your challenges, and that if you can't do something, that you kind of crash and you hate yourself for not being able to do it, which there are many cases of that. I'm personally guilty of that a decent amount of the time as well. And it's one of those things where having hope in those circumstances is actually really, really damaging. When you're also having a lack thereof, though, it leads to this strange spiral of looking at the world in a nothing really matters perspective, and not in a nihilistic way, because, as previously discussed in other episodes, nihilism isn't actually just nothing matters. Exactly. It is more so a productive way of looking at it. And so looking at it from the perspective of nothing matters in a completely null and void manner is dangerous as well, being that side of hopeless. So what are we getting at? Well, it's important to have hope, or maybe, have a metric of hope that is achievable. Say, for example, you hope that Arsenal can win the league, but as a fan, you have no input in that really. Or you hope that, by the end of the month you can move out and move into a new place. See, that you have more of an impact on. Or you could hope that, in the next 2 days you eat healthily. That's the one out of all of those three examples that you have the most impact on. And so to hope and then actualize things is probably the most important one that you can adapt to, because you're taking things that you can control, you can learn from, and move on. If Arsenal don't win the league, what can you do as a fan? Probably nothing, right? It is what it is. What can you do about moving out? Well, if you get gazumped, for example, the place you're trying to move into, someone else just offered that landlord more money. Again, there's just circumstance sometimes, there's nothing you can do. Or if you're trying to eat healthy the next 2 days, and when your mates calls you on the phone, it's like, yo, do you want to go this place, and it's, an all-you-can-eat place or something. Then again, it might be a bit more difficult to eat healthily, but you still can, right? You can work within your limits. And so hoping for certain things, wanting certain things, it really depends what you're hoping for. And if we're opening up this to the wider world, say, for example, you're hoping that the world, let's say, becomes more progressive, borders are more open, people are less judgmental. And if you're looking for that, well, what you're hoping for there is actually pretty unrealistic. You're hoping for something, you're basically hoping for the human psyche, human nature to change. Which again, is that a realistic thing to do? Maybe not. And so you're going to end up just becoming so angry with the world, so angry with yourself, hating the Homo sapiens species, really, among individual people in it, because your hope, your things you're caring about aren't really obtainable in that way. And this might come across as frustrating, this might come across as preachy, but in this world there are certain things you can do and there's a lot you can't, right? And so hoping for things that you know aren't realistic, if you really get to the root cause of it, aren't realistic, hoping for them will cause you more pain than good in the long run. And that's why personally, kind of taken a step back from caring about politics as much, because you realize that a lot of these problems that you're looking at actually aren't very achievable, because one, it relies on the current democratic system in your country or your nation or your area, the EU, whatever you're in. It relies upon a lot of other people agreeing with you. Which one are they going to? Well, not necessarily. And on the other hand, is it they're going to agree with you? Say, for example, you're pro-immigration. Well, there's a lot of different reasons people are pro-immigration to start with, and so there's probably not going to be for your reason. So hoping that your perspective comes across is unrealistic. You've got to hope that people are adaptable, maybe. You've got to hope that people do get on that similar wavelength to you. But hoping for purely selfish things becomes really quite impossible when you really get down to it. Got a mate called Ethan. He's probably watching this, so shout out. He's really into politics, and he's very much one of those people that does hope the world gets better. He hopes that, things do improve. He goes to rallies, he does things, he's actively involved in politics. And for people like that, fair enough. You are the change that might happen. It's just personally, and people often criticize his worldview, you don't have enough faith in other humans, you don't have enough faith in yourself even, to see this change, to follow it through. And that maybe is why having hope is just one of those things that is a little bit, to an extent, dangerous, no? When you're looking at, say, for example, the writers in the Reform Party in Wales, for example, this is an example that's been used a few times in the recent videos. It's easy to feel a little bit hopeless in that circumstance, because this is a party that doesn't really care about Welsh people. It cares about the working man, in theory, working people, in theory. But in reality, when you actually read what they're kind of applying for, it is more Anglo-centric. It's more for England. And this frustration that comes across, especially in their very generalistic and easy fix policies, get quite frustrating. So losing hope in that way, and certainly in the people around you, potentially, who are voting, potentially in the political system, potentially even in politicians who are just outright lying, outright just spreading misinformation for Machiavellian means, it's easy to lose hope. And what maybe we need to be doing as a society, maybe even as individuals, certainly guilty of this personally, is to just maybe hope less. Not necessarily in become completely hopeless, but at the same time taking that approach that there are certain things that hoping for will not achieve, and hope alone will not achieve them. Action will achieve them. Just caring about something is not enough these days. You actually have to do it. And maybe that's the takeaway from this. Is do or don't do. But don't just hope for something, because that won't get it anyway. So on that note, it's going to end. Thanks for watching, listening, whatever you've consumed it. Thank you. Do all the funny YouTube like, dislike, subscribe, comment if you want. And yeah, cheers. Alright, that's that. Cheers.